I'd like to find out from everybody, what is your knowledge of or experience of appreciative inquiry and or the SOAR model? I know it's been incorporated to one or two of the courses at AMA. So let's start with you, Bill, and I'll go around the pictures.
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with it. Again, I've read a few books on it, I guess,
Okay.
and I went to a small webinar on it at one time.
Okay, great. And Bob?
I have no experience with it at all.
Okay, great. And Bill, do you remember who gave the webinar?
No, unfortunately, I do not.
Okay, all right. Because I used to here in New York, I used to run a practice community through the Organizational Development Network, and so we met for 6 years. So we had most of the, the authors in the profession in appreciative inquiry come to New York at some point, and so I kind of know most of the folks. So did some work with quite a few of them. All right, Casey, how about yourself?
Well, I can take an educated guess as a certified coach and say it's a methodology by which we ask questions and listen.
Perfect. That's good. All right, Julie.
Yeah, I definitely have come across it in school and graduate school and in coaching.
Nice.
So not I've seen the SOAR model and maybe have used it in a paper once, but
Nice.
I haven't used it consciously. But
Okay.
I do use appreciative inquiry when at times.
All right, great. And what grad school?
Baruch.
Oh, yes.
The industrial organizational psychology.
Okay. I went to Baruch as well. So
Oh, great.
Yeah. So that was Professor Koppelman by any chance? No.
Gosselman.
Gosselman. Okay. So with I used to go and guest speak at Professor Koppelman's class.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. All right. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, I've used it with some groups and in some workshops and maybe did it do it the right way? I don't know. But
Appreciative inquiry or SOAR?
Appreciative inquiry, sorry.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And see it as a strengths-based process to help folks reconnect to times when we were potent before and using that as a leverage point to the current challenges.
Excellent. Hey, Brent, I see you joined us. I see you're in the car.
Yeah,
So I was asking what your experience is of. Oop, we lost him for a second. All right, hopefully you can hear me. So we're asking about the experience of appreciative inquiry and or SOAR model. All right, he may not be connected. All right, and Michelle, what about yourself? Can you unmute? Oh, maybe she stepped away.
By the way, Jill Greenberg from our group, I think, is a appreciative inquiry trainer. Do you know her?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, throat is sore. Okay, Michelle, I'm sorry. I know you said that, but I was hoping you could share. All right, so if you could maybe type it in, if you have experience of it, that would be great, just so I am aware. All right, great, thank you. So let me share my screen. So a little bit of background. Back in the 90s, I was doing sales and marketing strategy around the world. And all these companies were doing, investing millions and getting all their salespeople trained, but I never saw anything really change because they were, while this was encouraging to invest time to create longer term relationships, they never did all the other change management aspects. Their marketing collateral wasn't changing, and their compensation plans weren't changing. They were still getting paid to push product out the door. So after 6 years of traveling 38 weeks out of the year, it was time for a change. And I went to one of the big consulting firms in change management, hoping they would provide me the tools and the methodology, the coaching models, all that to really create good change management. And they essentially handed me a project plan. And that was it, and said, okay, go do. So that wasn't exactly what I was anticipating. And it was in that time that I understood we really needed to do change with people rather than to people. And so I began looking at how do we engage people in the process? Because there was one time I was parachuted into a company where they were putting in the big ERP system in the back. And then there was all this change going on, and the people were not engaged at all. So I was to assess how the project was going. And I just watched, interviewed all these people, and they're like, it's going. And that was about as much enthusiasm as I could get from anybody. And I would go to their meetings, I would see commitments being made and go to their meeting 2 weeks later. And she's like, oh yeah, I didn't get to it. I had to do my regular job. So not knowing that this was the regular job now. So I said, there's got to be another way. And I began looking for different approaches. I have books galore behind my computer. I know most of you have a room for bookshelves behind you. So all my organizational development and influencing books and all kinds of strategy books are all there. So I began looking for those approaches, and I discovered Appreciative Inquiry. I read a couple of the papers. I started getting some of the books. And finally, in 2004, I was like, this is, I think, for me. And I went and invested and went.
I'm trying to find it, Brent, so I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I saw several things there.
And I was going back to whatever it's called. I don't remember.
Hey, Brent,
Microphone
better
is on
mute
mute.
yourself. There's some background. Okay.
There we go. So I'm like, are you talking about our program or something else? All
I
right.
thought your voice changed there for a minute, Denise. I'm like,
know.
she's doing a little ventriloquism on us.
Exactly. So I attended one of the foundations courses out west. Hi, Brent. Do you have something to say? You're unmuted again.
Brent, you better.
Unwrapping a piece of candy.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I attended the foundations course. I came back about 2 months later, and some of the members of the OD network wanted to do like a special intro. Brent, can you keep your phone on mute somehow? I think your directions keep on unmuting you.
Bill, you can mute him too.
Okay.
There we go. All right, so they did it, and it was a rainy day like it is today in New York, and something like 30 to 35 people showed up for that presentation. And the weird thing is, there is kind of an impression that this is the soft stuff, and 75% of the people that showed up were men, which was, I thought, interesting. So I kind of spoke with the two guys, and I said, I just came back from the foundations course, and we created that whole community of practice. And it was looking at what we call whole system approaches. So if anybody teaches the foundations of strategic planning, in there they have future search, which is another whole system. And then you have open space, which is probably the least facilitated approach of any of them from Harrison Owen. So we basically were looking at all of these, and a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of the mediators began coming to those sessions that we had on a like every month and a half basis. So it was a lovely community, and then my bandwidth got too small, and then my list got stale, and so I tried to revive it. It didn't quite work so well. So that being said, when we say whole systems, it means that you want all the stakeholders as part of the conversation. I'm going to do one for a nonprofit over in New Jersey later next month, and it's all their different programs that service a particular city around food security, et cetera. And so they're bringing, you know, all different parts of the system together to see how they can better partner together. So appreciative inquiry, if we break it down, appreciate, what is it that we appreciate about our current system, our current processes, our current organization, that we would like to actually elevate? You know, what is working really well? And so to appreciate, to raise in value or price, but it's what do we really value about ourselves, about the organization, about the system, about the people we work with, that we want to elevate in the organization. And then to inquire. So how do we gather that information? And how do we look at and get on the same page? So often in systems or organizations, people may see that there are different issues, but they're speaking at them from their perspective. And what ends up happening in this process of appreciative inquiry is, as people are sharing, they begin getting on the same page with languaging. So that they're not speaking at each other, they're now speaking more with each other. So it was founded by Dr. David Cooperrider. He was a young doctoral student at Case Western, and he had gone to the Cleveland Clinic, and he was doing a traditional organizational development assessment there, which was about searching for the problems. But something weird was happening. He was getting stories more about what was working. So he was kind of at a loss. He went back to his doctoral advisor, Shrivastava, and said, well, what do I do? And he said, well, why don't we, inquire into what is working in the system? And the more people he continued to interview in the process, the greater the level of productivity became, because people were celebrating what they were most proud of, and they were beginning to get on the same page about what the issues and challenges were. And so that is how appreciative inquiry was born. So it is a whole systems process that emerged out of organizational development. It looks at what is most positive. What are the qualities that we have, the strengths that we possess as an organization, our competitive differentiators. It leverages those qualities to enhance the organization. What do we want to elevate more? And it's the study of what is really working well in the organization, the system, the family unit. There's a couple who now live in Rhode Island, but they met early in appreciative inquiry development, and they went on 1 or 2 dates, and they actually used the appreciative questions to interview each other, and they got married less than a year later. They found they were on so much the same page. They even wanted to live by the ocean, so I think they moved from DC up to Rhode Island and got a house on the water. And they have 2 beautiful grown-up daughters now. It's amazing. So a couple of the underpinnings of appreciative inquiry is that words create worlds. So what we talk about becomes what, hello? What we talk about becomes our reality, like our Constitution, or so we, reality is subjective, and we create it when we discuss it. And if we can use more positive language, imagine if the news focused on the positive rather than all the stuff that it does focus on. How would even our mood be as a country? So the more positive the language, the more positive it guides our actions, and what we talk about, becomes the focus. What is it that we want to create rather than what are we trying to get rid of? So one of my favorite quotes comes from this is about images. So what do you see here? So, who'd like to share? What do they see?
I see a woman's face and a candelabra.
Okay,
I see two faces.
you see two faces. Right. I
Looking
did,
at the candelabra.
yeah. And then I did this with a group of nurses, and one said she saw a dagger. I was like, ooh. So, it depends on your perspective and where your focus is, that you can identify, what is before us, because each person has their own unique perspective. So Joe Jaworski was chairman of the American Leadership Forum. This is one of my favorite quotes that I use a lot. It's through language that we create the world, because it is nothing until we describe it. And when we describe it, we create the distinctions that govern our actions. To put it another way, we do not describe the world we see the world we describe. And so, we want to focus on what we want to create rather than what's broken and, what's bad. So, and we also grow towards that which gives us energy, like the sunflower that tracks with the sun throughout the day. When you have worked in an office, when you see somebody that people like to gather around because it gives them energy, versus those that, have a sour face or carry some negative energy around them, people run away when they see them coming. And part of it goes with the kinds of questions that we ask. Do they give people energy, or do they zap people's energy? And so we want to be the kind of folks that is like the sun that people want to work with, because we give them energy and help unleash their innovation. So we want to, maximize people's energy. And then the moment we ask a question, change begins. So the questions we ask will drive what we find, what people will respond to. And that also helps people move in the direction of where we want to go. So when we think about the kinds of questions, as you look at this set of questions, what kind of energy does that give you? What does it feel like somatically in your body, Julie?
Yeah, that to me feels like analysis where we're sourcing the problem. That seems to be the consistent.
Yeah. And one of the issues is, as we're looking at root cause of the problem, we're kind of looking, all right, who's to blame? Who do we point to? And then as we start doing the finger pointing, the more finger pointing, people start getting defensive. And as defensiveness goes up, communication goes down.
Right.
So it's, and then think about these kinds of questions. How does that feel in the body? More positive, more future focused, more solution oriented.
And more collaborative too.
Exactly. Because now it's not about fixing what's broken. It's about getting to the destination that we want to get to. It's like we want to get to that solution. And it's action oriented.
Mhm.
So positive questions lead to positive change. So Margaret Somerville from McGill, answers reflect the past and questions advise us about the future. When I teach most of the strategy classes, and there's a great quote by Clayton Christensen: to move to the future based solely on data is like trying to drive a car forward, only looking in the rearview mirror. And then I saw an addendum to that, and it was, there's a reason why the rearview mirror is small and your windshield is large. So I love that. I thought that was great. So what we ask about actually determines what we help to bring about in the organization. And we move to the images of the future. You know, in '62, JFK said, we're going to land a man on the moon and bring him back safely before the end of the decade. And the more positive that we can craft that message, like the Joe Jaworski quote, the more positive their present day actions will be. And, you know, it create and help people to want to attract that future state. So Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve the problems we have created with the same thinking that created them. So appreciative inquiry, the overall process that David Cooperrider developed, it starts with discovery. And it generally, in the actual process, everybody will start in a paired interview. And in a 3-day process, this whole discovery piece actually takes place over the course of at least the first half of the first day, sometimes into even the after lunch time. Because what we're trying to do is identify what about our entire organization and our system, or what are the themes that are present, and what are those elements that we want to elevate and take into the future. And a big part of this process, either in the discovery phase with those themes, or in the dream phase, when they're dreaming about possible alternative visions of the future, is to bring in a sense of play. So very often there's a little, even like trinkets and toys on the table that just show a more playful environment, and also will lots of arts and crafts supplies, because they will do either a front page of a newspaper or a skit or a poster or some sort of art project that emerges those themes into an art, you know, something that describes their future. And sometimes by getting them into the creative space, it gives them something to look at later to then describe what those themes are some more, or to actually let that vision emerge by just being able to describe the art project. So it taps into both sides, the left and the right brain in the process. And it's amazing. I remember I was working with one of the other practitioners, and I said, are we going to actually do the arts and crafts? And we were at one of the very technical universities where lots of scientists and mathematicians. And she's like, oh yeah, absolutely. And it was so fun. There were a lot of guys that looked like Einstein there. And, you know, they were doing crepe paper bow ties and pipe cleaner hats. And it was quite fun to see. So that's dreaming, the images of the future, shared vision. So that can also be that art project at that point. And then they come to the design phase. And that is, all right, if we're going to work towards those visions, what do we keep? What do we change? And what do we chuck? So they create those possibility propositions. So they have that vision, but or another word they use is provocative propositions, because they want it to be provocative. They want it to be a stretch. So, and then the destiny is actually the action planning. So what are the specific projects that need to take place? What actions shall we take? And people get to self-select on what they work on because they're going where their passions are. So let me just stop there and get some reactions to this, to what you think about it, where you think some of the challenges are, etc.
I'm gonna chime in. So my specialty these days is problem solving. So I can't see how you would not want to get into asking questions. You know, we do a develop awareness. So we want to ask questions about what's going on, you know, why is some of these things happening? So, and I don't think it's negative. I think it's just gathering information that you're going to need to then come up with a solution. So how does that fit in?
All right, well, let me hold on that and get other people's perspective. What other challenges might you think might come up around implementing this?
I'll weigh in here. I mean, I like this, and I'm wondering how you would deploy it in an organization that's so bogged down and people are mired in the past. So by even using positive language, you might get a reaction like, yeah, well, we've done that before. Yeah, well, everybody's so beat down around here, they're not going to even look at that. So, you know, how do you counter it when things are just mired in negativity?
Yeah, it happens, and people want to talk about it. They want to be heard. And so that is a big challenge. And one of the things that I find is, especially some of these negative folks, this is done in collaboration with some of the team. And you actually create a committee, and sometimes the most vocal folks are invited, you know, that the ones that are saying, oh, this will never work here, you know, you invite them to be part of it. And one of the things I saw in one of the, probably the most negative guy ended up like getting the most involved. He got some of the students involved. And, you know, he became kind of a big proponent. And you're not going to bring everybody. However, once you get people in that more positive vibe, it's like the sunflower. They're like, oh, they're coming up with interesting ideas. Oh, that might be fun to be involved in. And so they kind of begin to you know, there's some that'll never, you know, they're the ones that that'll never come along. And there are the ones that do see, ooh, there's some possibility here. And it gives them a vision to live up to. So, other thoughts?
I was going to
I would
say that,
imagine,
oh, go ahead, Julie.
I just was gonna say, I would imagine that certain cultures would be more difficult than others, where it's baked in to be highly analytical and retrospective, and certain types of departments might also who are focused on that type of work.
Yeah. Yeah, part of what I experienced is with baby boomers still in charge, where it's more the command and control culture, allowing things to come bottom up, it doesn't always work. I've also gotten from, you know, many of us are in that baby boom generation. I get pushback in, well, people lower in the organization, they don't have enough information to know what's good for the organization. So so that was like the last OD meeting where I had people come and they're like, yeah, that's not going to work. And I was just, well, you might be surprised. you know, if there is greater trust. And so I kind of think as the next generation, you know, begins to get into leadership roles, they have been more in teams that come together and then go apart and they share leadership and more. I think this is going to have a much broader impact. I do see it working a lot in the nonprofit sector, really well, because it is about serving whoever their constituencies are. So they are looking for what ideas of how we can do this better. But it has worked. A lot of organizations, you know, David Cooper has worked with companies around the world, business as an agent of world benefit, etc. So I want to come back to Bill's because we were talking about problem solving. And so part of the problem solving mentality, I'm going to see if I can get my annotate thing going.
Can I say one thing before you
Yeah,
get back to Bill?
Sure, absolutely.
Addressing your original question, if you've got an organization full of naysayers, they've got a lot of history and they are not happy campers, how do you get this new approach to work? And I'm a believer that you can tell anything to anybody if you frame it properly.
Yeah.
And your sequence of slides here, I think, is a wonderful way to frame what you're asking them to do. And so if you stepped them through the slides that you stepped us through, you help them to see that this is a new approach. And the old approach that they expect, which is solve the problem, solve the problem, solve the problem, who's at fault, that approach has negative rather than positive payoff. You may cause a lot of ears to be open so as to receive the rest of the message.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways, sadly, she's no longer with us. Watkins, Jane Watkins. She did this on a flip chart. She said, when we do problem solving, we can think of the organization, here we go, the organization is moving along and oops, now we have a problem. So the problem causes, you know, productivity to go down. And we begin spending and investing time and doing root cause analysis, you know, and then figuring out, okay, and then we may, you know, invite vendors in to help us solve the problem. So more time is passing. Then we might have to go out to RFP to try and get the ideas in, and then we have to implement the solutions. And now, you know, how much time has gone by the time we actually solve this problem? And ultimately what that might be doing is taking us right back here, but it could be 6 months or a year later, and this might be irrelevant. So the idea is we want to free frame and say, what is the opposite of the problem? Or what would the problem look like if it didn't exist? And look to, where do we need to be 6 months from now or a year from now? You know, will this problem be and is this the right problem we need to be solving for right now based upon what our overall strategy is, you know, for the longer term? So what ended up well, there's a story. I wish I could access who this was that shared that. It was one of the Appreciative Inquiry consultants, and they were working with one of the airlines, and they had a problem with lost luggage. And they were looking the root cause. And when we focus on the problems, we tend to have a different perspective. It's a problem mentality. And so one of the solutions was to invest $10 million in a new luggage handling system to help solve the lost luggage problem. When they reframed it and began, you know, looking, well, what do you really want to have, you know, in going into the future? And ultimately they settled on, we want an exceptional customer arrival experience. And when they began looking at it, they realized it was really a process issue. And so when they addressed that, they redid the process, they brought people on board, they got them trained up, and ultimately customer satisfaction went up, luggage handling problems went down, and they saved $10 million on a luggage handling system. And, you know, think about how often do companies throw money at a problem and they still have the problem, because they may not be focusing on the right thing. And so by that, they ended up focusing into the future of what they wanted to have. So they reframed the lost luggage as to having an exceptional customer arrival experience. And so they were able to move much further into the future. So Bill, thoughts?
Well, again, that's an interesting story, but that's one story. I think you need information. And I think how you gather that information, you can't not have information. So
Yeah,
that's my only bugaboo.
absolutely. So one of the things, the SOAR model kind of follows this process. So we'll look at that in a little bit in the future. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to put you into breakout groups. I am going to drop an interview into the chat. So this is a sample interview protocol that I created for our group today. It's going to go very, very fast. Ooh, this is not how it usually works.
They changed the security system. Sometimes if you're attaching a document, if it's not in the Zoom folder, you can't see it.
Hold on. I still have the pencil. I'm trying to get rid of the pencil. Let me try that. Okay, so that works. Connect. Give me one moment. Oh,
While you're doing
yeah.
that, Rich, did you want to say something? I know you
Let's see if I can
wanted to put
drag
your
and
2 cents
drop
in
it.
there before.
No, not really. I mean, no, nothing. I can't wait.
So
Oh,
one of
feel
the other things before you put us into breakouts, I know Michelle can't go into a breakout, and I don't know, Brent,
Right.
if you fixed your, you're being able to speak.
Sure.
You can let us know. Brent, are you good to go into a breakout room or no?
I'll be able to go in, but I'm in a car and probably won't be able to see whatever's being downloaded.
Okay.
So I might be
No.
an observer.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I was
Hi,
late.
Stevie.
I probably won't add much to a breakout because I just got here. but-
Oh, it's okay. It's an interview.
You're always an addition, Stevie.
That's right. That's right. Steve.
Oh, I know that you mean that too, Rich. Thank you. You wouldn't be buttering me up, would you? What, 2 truths and a pie, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, I'm gonna see if I can drag and drop it.
Did you get it from off your computer? It should work. Is it on your computer?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So it's an interview on the personal best. So who can see your message? Send
I see
successfully.
it.
Okay, cool. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tell you what, Brent, I will go into the a breakout with you, and I'll pair everybody else off, and I'll just ask you the questions. And Michelle, I'll put you in that one too, so you can at least hear the questions and hear Brent's responses to them. You don't have to participate if your throat is not good.
For some reason, I can't see anything. I don't.
It's in the chat.
I dropped it in the chat.
Oh, in the chat. Thank you.
Yes, I dropped it in the chat because when I put you into the groups, you won't have the main screen. So, all right. So what I'd like to have happen, we're going to do it for about did we just lose somebody?
No, I was just opening
Okay.
something.
Okay. It's going to be very quick, so you'll have to move quick. Generally, these are much lengthier, and sometimes it's an hour each way interview. So this is part of the discovery. And what's great is when you're mixing people from all different departments and they get to interview and meet somebody else that they didn't know, you're breaking down some of the silos in an organization. And it really gets to, you know, if they had an enemy image, oh, finance, they're always, you know, trying to cut our budgets, you know, they get to see the humanity of the other person. So I'll have the timer on for 7 minutes each way. So this will be about 14 minutes. So try to get through as many of the questions as you can. So A interviews B and then B interviews A. All right, so let me get the breakouts going. So we need, what did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I'm going to quickly move people around because I'm letting it auto create. All right, so give me 1 second. All right, so we're gonna move Brent. Move to room 3. All right, and then Rich, I'm going to move you over to room 1.
No, I learned to pace myself. I don't want to be too busy anymore, but I've been there before, and it's good and it's exhausting, you know.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed you're still doing some training with DCAS?
I am with DCAS, and I do some work with Con Edison. And I like them. I decided I'm at my stage in my career, I'm just going to work with people I like, doing topics I like. So it's good.
I'm
Hi,
right
Bill.
behind you.
Bill, how's your program going?
I'm just a spy. So
Oh, but how is
it's
your
gonna be-
program going? Tell me quickly. Did you?
Not that great, but I have to rethink it, you know, because
Okay.
I think the holidays didn't work for trying to do this during the holidays.
Yeah, people maybe, you know, just can't commit to things right now, you know. All right. So I came in really late. I'm not, my head isn't totally into it, but you know, I always try to come to our meetings when I can. So I don't know if you guys were there from the beginning. You might be in a better position.
No, I don't think she was either. And then, again, I
I
apologize.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't either, Rita? Oh, okay.
No, and I really jumped on purely because I like to learn. I
Yeah.
use SOAR, I
Me
use
too.
AI.
You
I'm
can do
using it with a
this.
client right now.
No,
Yeah.
you can do this. Both of you can do this. It's no big deal. It's just interviewing using these questions. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what are we doing this for? Because the process is appreciative inquiry and to feel
yeah, on good
Okay.
stuff, and then
Yeah.
basically the more you focus on the good stuff, the more you're going to be able to
all
create
right.
create a world that's positive.
Well, Rita, you kind of started, you're kind of at a high point, aren't you? Or do you think number 1 or not?
Yeah, I was looking at the question saying, you know, how do I want to respond to that? A time when I'm feeling most alive, energized, and engaged. When I'm feeling that way is usually when I'm collaborating with a co-trainer.
Okay.
And I really enjoy the process of, you know, innovation, creating training programs and learning from other people how they do what they do and incorporating it in what I do. So I would say most recently I did that with a subcontractor that I hired to do a retreat with Bloomberg next week. And so that was exciting. You know, I feel
Yeah.
I'm not, when I hang up the call, I'm not like dragging,
Yeah.
you know.
Good.
Yeah, and
Right.
coaching is another time when I feel really energized and engaged, because I feel blessed that it's one of those things that I can do pretty effortlessly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coaching is just, it's in my mind, and it's whatever's in my mind.
Yeah.
So when I talk to people, it's like, what is the problem? Here's what I think. And it's a beautiful place to be. There's not, unlike training where you have to study up and make the PowerPoint and prepare everything. Coaching, if you know what you're doing and you're good at what you do, at least for me, I just talk.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah. You've got a wellspring of information that's probably already in your brain, ready to be applied, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, how are we working? Does everybody want to answer the first question, or are we trying to answer all one person at a time?
I think he said 7 minutes. She said 7 minutes, and then she would give us a heads up on when you're supposed to switch. I think that's
Oh,
what you said.
okay.
She did? Okay. Whatever you want to do. Which of the other questions do you like best? Let's do it that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. I had the same thought.
Oh, good. See, great minds. So do I.
I think question number 2, I kind of just answered. I think the value that I bring is the wealth of knowledge that I have, and the compassion and empathy that I have for others, you know, as a mediator and as a facilitator and master coach. So I feel really great when I'm able to help people and help them to feel more confident and in control of their lives through strategy and recommendations for whatever the situation is that they're facing. If I had 3 wishes for creating more opportunity to experience my personal best, I would like to be where you are, Stevie.
You will be.
I want to pick, choose, and refuse. And right now I really have a lot of work, and it's really great. I have a lot of work, and I can see I'm trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel, because I have a retirement goal. I need a certain amount of money so that I can step away from this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm working toward that. So the wish would be that I get there faster. You know, that I can generate the income that I'm striving for sooner than 62, which is the plan is 62. I'm 58. So that's 4 years from now.
You're a baby. But that's great. You'll
I
get
do
there.
it in 2 years. I'd kill myself to do it in 2 years and then be done. And then say, I like you. I like you. I'll work with you.
Yeah.
You know, versus writing proposals, competing for bids, and feeling like I'm trying so hard.
Right. That's interesting.
I think I kind of answered the 4th one. If I could wake up a year from now and all those dreams would come true, excuse me, what would happen? I'd be going on vacation. That's what would happen.
On
Without
vacation
worry.
anyway. Yeah.
And what did
So
you
you'd be on
do?
vacation, and what else? 3 wishes.
I would have more ability to do philanthropic kind of things.
Yeah.
At one point in my life, I developed and launched a mentoring program for teen girls. And I pulled in 5 colleagues and women that I knew to mentor. And I organized like events, activities that we would attend together. It was 10 of us, 5 mentors and 5 mentees. I might want to do something more like that, spend my time grooming the mentors.
You know, Wita, if you ever do that, think of me. I'd love to be a part of something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I'd be delighted to have you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, see?
So let's switch. Let's switch. Um,
Let's go to Bill.
No, good. You know, Stevie, go ahead.
No, you go. No, you go,
No,
right?
no,
Okay.
no, again, I don't mind. I want to just.
I'm older than you, Rita, so I've been there, and believe me, you'll get there. You're going to get there. And I've had so many careers. I think I've told, I have a PhD in women's history. I worked at the MTA. I've worked in politics. I've written proposals, done everything that you're talking about. And I guess the high point, I don't know, the political stuff was a lot of fun, a lot of hassles too. I like working with other people, not training with other people. My D is too high for that. So I'm an ID, so the D is too high. Yeah, I like this kind of thing. This is why I checked in. I like connecting with people, and I like talking with colleagues, and I don't know what else, it's gratifying when you feel you've made an impact on people. The thing I love about training is the interaction with people, not so much the developing the program. Although developing the program does give you control over what you do, but I don't enjoy it. When I'm developing it, I'm totally in it, but I can't say I enjoy it. What I enjoy is interacting with the people. I love that. And what do I value most as a professional? I think all the different experience I've had, I can bring it to bear, because I've had so many different industries and everything. And if I had 3 wishes for creating more opportunities, I don't know. I don't understand that totally. I understand, Rita, what you answered. You want to be at a certain place and have that economic freedom to choose more, right? I don't know. I don't want to retire fully. I love keeping my hand in. I think I'd be bored if I didn't have. But I'd like to continue to have those. I don't want to write any more proposals. I'm done with writing proposals. And I think I wish that remote work would continue. I'm not sure how I feel about returning to in-person, but it's going to happen soon. I know it's going to happen soon because I'm scheduled. And 1 year from now, with 3 of your wishes come true, I think, I really like where I am. I just hope I and my husband stay healthy and my kids stay healthy. And, I love where I am. I really do. I really like where I am. So I just hope it continues and health continues, and, we continue all the connections and, I still have the opportunity. I truly feel that way. And it's been a long time getting here. I'm kind of surprised to hear myself say it, but there it is. So I just hope it lasts.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice.
Now you, Bill.
Okay. Well, the high point in my professional career, I ran a nonprofit agency for about 18 years called the Volunteer Center. And that was the high point. I created such great programs. And so collaboration, that's why, Rita, what you were saying is really important too. I'd love to collaborate. So I would like to do more of and I thought this group actually was going to help me create more things with some of the other trainers. Hasn't happened really. I've gotten input from people. But anyway, so creating programs that really help people out. And that's why problem solving, which is again where my book is at. I want to work with people who want to solve the problems, who want to put the energy and resources in to actually solve the problems. I don't want to come in and do just a rah-rah thing. I think to me that's boring. I think if I could find people, and so what my ultimate goal is to create a problem-solving community. So people would get in touch with my 6-step process. They'd want to solve the problem. If they could solve the problem on their own, great. But I'd like to have a community that would come together maybe once a month, and then people would talk about where they're stuck, and then get information not only from me, but from other people. And I'd love to be doing this on a bigger level. I'd like to be doing this in the problem solvers group in Congress. I mean, I'd love to be doing that. But I don't even know if they're serious about solving problems. I think they're probably not. So that would be frustrating for me. So if I could find, I just did my first shot out of the box was working with this nonprofit in Boston. They went through my program. We did 4 2-hour sessions. The people put in great work, came up with great stuff to do. The executive director only picked one of the problems out. We are working on 5. He picked one of them out to solve. And I've been in touch with them since then, and it's been about 10 months. They're working on it because it's a big problem. So these things don't just, get solved overnight. So that's what I would really love to be doing, is working with groups of people. Doesn't even have to be nonprofits, doesn't have to be companies. It could be people, just in general. Again, organizations, community organizations that want to solve a problem, and just shepherd them through as much as they need my help, but as much as they could do on their own, great. And so
You're a great organizer, Bill. I mean, that's interesting.
Well, I haven't been able to do it as much as I'd like to right now. So
You've got a problem you need to solve.
that's right. I do. I definitely do. So, but anyway, I think it's going to happen because I think that the thing works. My system works, and I just have to find the right way in. And right now, I'm thinking of doing it through the library locally. And I've been in touch with some of the nonprofits up here in Westchester, and
Right.
hopefully I could get in to do some work with those.
I think it's interesting that all 3 of us are interested in the nonprofit sector and making that kind of contribution. And right, I mean, it's an interesting. I don't know if everybody in the group is, but I'm hearing that the 3 of us are.
Yeah.
So.
Have either of you used this framework, Appreciative Inquiry?
I've heard of the term before.
Yeah.
Is this there's different ways of applying the term, am I correct?
Well, she's going to tell us about the SOAR model, which I think
Okay.
is how it morphed into the SOAR model. So we'll see what that's all about, I guess.
Rita, you should do something sometime. I bet you've got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
I've always heard so many good things about you. I bet it'd be an interesting session if you can. I know you're busy already, so I'm adding to your schedule here, but maybe if you get a moment to breathe, you could do that.
By the way, I was down at DCAS yesterday.
Oh,
Believe it or not, I was working with Department of Corrections. You want to talk about somebody that's kind of tough, man. Problem solving. The problem. Oh, we can't fix this. I said you got to come in with the idea that there could be a solution. If you come in here saying it can't be solved, that's a waste of time. So it's just, I don't know, just one of those things.
They've had a hard road, what's going on in Rikers and everything.
Yeah, no, I was hoping that, but they didn't have the right people there. They were all kind of low-level manager type people. It wasn't the right people.
Right.
So anyway.
So were you facilitating, Bill? You have a consulting gig with DCAS too?
I work through Michelle. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. And again, I would just hope that I could find again somebody who really. But I see that you have to go in at a high level to get entree into people wanting to commit the resources and time, because it does take time.
Right.
No doubt about it.
And then you've got to deal with the politics, which is really key. Right. I mean, that's major, I think.
But I don't mind that. It's the people.
Well, I mean, they have to deal with it, not you.
Yeah,
so
no,
much,
I got you. But that's why I want to stay in touch with them. If I can stay in touch with them even once a month to make sure they're moving ahead, I think that would be great.
So, Bill, where is your passion for problem solving? Where does that come from for that particular topic? Yeah.
Again, the volunteer center, we were dealing with people come in with problems, and we were helping them get volunteers to help them solve the problems. And we did a lot of good problem solving. Started a lot of great programs that are still going today, which is rewarding in itself. But some of them went by the boards, but can't.
So Rita, you're working with Bloomberg. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a big project.
Yeah. Is it coaching or training?
No, it's a retreat.
Okay.
For their health initiative.
Good for you.
In Philadelphia. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And where are they holding it in Philly?
At the Lowe's Hotel.
Okay,
It's at one of the hotels in downtown Philly.
for you.
And
who is
yeah.
it going there? Like, is it people more to the top of the?
Well, it's a huge summit. It's a huge summit, and
Okay.
there are 5 different focus areas, and I'm going
Right.
to retreat to one of the
See
5.
you back in the main room.
Yeah, at 58 seconds. Yeah, those are fun, right? So there's going to be hundreds of people maybe, and they'll go to different.
Yeah, different ones.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Denise. Let's see, I can't hear you. Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
no, yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Maybe just real quick, the appreciative inquiry process, was this considered to be like part of the discovery, or how does this tie in with those 4 steps?
This interview is part of the discovery piece.
Okay, gotcha.
So we'll wait for everybody to come on back.
Brent, who were you in the car with that you were having such a fun time? Sounded like your kids.
I can't divulge.
Okay,
Down
so
in the back, down in the back.
all right, so first I'd just like to get some thoughts on what was the overall experience like for everybody. You're on mute, Bob.
Okay, there we are. No, I only saw 2 people on the screen, so my question was, are we all back?
Yes,
I see we are.
So what was that experience like for folks?
Well, I think it was fun. I liked talking to my 2 colleagues.
Good. Excellent.
We needed more time.
Yes, no,
Yeah,
I
that's true.
know. Yeah, this is just a teaser taste of the experience, because I know that was a very aggressive timestamp on things.
Yeah.
It made me think about things that I really hadn't kind of focused on before. So
Good.
that was interesting.
Yeah, I think there was some inspiration going on, and we were feeding off of each other and helping each other kind of think of new possibilities, which was fun.
Excellent.
I think a big byproduct was that Rich was my partner here, that speaking for myself, I thought that the 2 of us came to know each other better, and I liked it. When people get a chance to talk about anything, they tend to understand each other's perspectives and like each other better.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
agree with that. I've known of Stevie for quite some time because we both have contracts at DCAS. And finally getting to have a conversation with her was really delightful.
Ditto.
Yeah. So one of the things is we very often in the process, these interviews can be a half hour each way, an hour each way. It depends on the number of questions. And very often in one of the organizations that we did this, they did over 200 interviews prior to the session. So imagine, like each person did 4 or 5 interviews. People they got to know across a very large organization. What kind of energy that unleashes?
Right.
Because did your energy go up or did it go down?
Yeah, it went up.
Absolutely. And imagine that as the starting base for discussions of a future for a team, for a group, for an organization. So what other questions do I usually ask in this part?
I have a comment. So
Sure.
I use AI and I use SOAR. And in
good.
fact, I am about to work with a client on Monday. And so I gave them pre-work as the interview. I gave them the interview questions.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah, not quite similar types of questions, but obviously a little bit more focused in their area. So when I bring them back together, the pairs, I was going to have the pairs meet with another pair and to do another round of sharing, but a little bit more focused, or introduce each other to another pair. And then there's an output from that of, and I'm just debating whether I was going to have them charted. I don't think so, but you know, it's about helping to lift up the experience and the talents and the skills of the people in the room, and affirm that. So
Absolutely.
I just wondered if how you do your output on something like this. What's the, you know, how are you using that data?
Yeah.
towards
So the
this,
next step in the process, generally, it depends on how large the group. I've done this with 200 people in the room. I think I've done it. Have I done the 700? I don't even remember. It's been almost 20 years worth. So I've done it with lots of people. And so we bring them to tables of 6 or 8. So you got to give the time. Obviously, you saw this was way too much short a time, and that was just essentially the 4 core questions. And generally there's more, you know, whether it's how do we have exceptional teamwork, or, you know, where have you experienced top-notch leadership? You know, so all those different kinds of questions can be embedded in it. So you bring them back. And so I interviewed Brent, and so I would share what resonated the most for me with what he shared. And then if he had interviewed me, he would have shared what resonated most for him. And the rest of the table, I generally put a sheet of flip chart paper on the table, and there's markers, and, you know, just take notes, listen for, you know, words or themes that struck you, that resonated for you, you know, words that or strengths that are part of what we want here. And so everybody just sort of jots down things on the flip chart, so everybody's can participate. And then after everybody's done, the next round would be to, all right, out of everything that you heard, what are the themes or strengths or values that we most want to bring forward in the organization? So we get, I usually do, I'll prepare some flip charts with top 5. So we get the top 5 from each table. And then the next round, we put all those charts on the wall. And then I give everybody 3 dots. So what are the top 3 from everywhere across this? And there might be, you know, the same things across them. So you kind of bring them all together and you highlight the top ones that rose to the top. You know, maybe the top 5, and then we put them into, that's an opportunity to either go into the dream or have them do the art project or the skit. It's like, all right, how would the world look different if those 5 themes had been, you know, bumped up another 50% or something like that? And so we have them do some sort of art project, etc. So this is all still part of that discovery process, and then you would then take it to the dream process. One of the things that I have gotten from a feedback perspective, they want more opportunity to switch groups, because after a while they end up staying kind of as that core group, but they want to hear more from other people. So sometimes we'll do 3 rounds where we'll have one pair stay at the table and everybody else go to another table and share and hear what other people had to share. So they'll introduce their partner again and then do it a 3rd round. So that's another way to get people moving around.
How long a session, if you did it the way you wanted to, you know, with enough time and everything, how long would that session go?
It really depends on what the customer is looking for. Right now, I'm doing a session on the 15th that is just like a little more than 3/4 of the day. So we're going 9 to 4-ish. So we're just doing the design and just an initial discussion to get the 5 folks, the 5 key ideas for collaboration that will be explored further. And then they'll have maybe just like 20 minutes to think about, all right, what would our next steps be, which is like the design and deliver aspect. But generally they recommend a 3-day process, as does Future Search. Future Search, their rules are always 2 sleeps, or their recommendations, because it's in those after discussions, you know, that the processing overnights that a lot of the connections start to be made, and they start to hear different things. But I've done this in half-day sessions, you know, you ultimately it can be done in all different kinds of formats. But to get through the whole 4 cycles, you want a good at least 2 days to do it effectively. Other thoughts or questions?
I've found that companies, well, I won't say companies, but a lot of clients don't want to spend 2 days, or, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
they
true.
want something in a half day, you
Yeah.
know, 90 minutes.
Right.
How do you,
So, yeah, well, what kind of results are you looking for then?
Perfect results,
Yeah.
right? You want to solve all the problems, Bill.
transformation in 90 minutes.
That's right.
Transformation, 90 minutes, if you're lucky, maybe an hour even.
Yeah.
Hey
So-
Denise, I don't know if you're familiar with Jerry and Monique Sternin and their positive deviance work.
Yes,
very-
yes,
yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
Very much aligned with.
Yeah, I think they
Appreciative
even
Inquiry.
came and spoke once at our OD network. Yeah. Is that the one that they worked with?
Vietnam.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the malnutrition.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly. Yeah, no, I love that. What are their names again? Because it's been a while.
Jerry and Monique Stern, and actually Jerry's passed away. I think Monique's still alive, but it's very similar. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, for the rest of you, it's they were over in Vietnam trying to figure out how to, as part of the Peace Corps, help the villages dealing with starvation, and 90% of the villages, you know, the kids were dying, and they were getting depressed trying to address it from that perspective, and they suddenly clicked in their heads, why are we looking at the 90% where it's failing? Let's look at the 10% where they're thriving.
Mhm.
And suddenly they figured out, all right, this is where we need to focus. So it's very similar to the positive strengths-based approach to
Okay.
problem solving.
Yeah, so instead of focusing on
Yeah,
the
it's still
problem,
on.
they're focusing
Yeah.
on what's working. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, hold on, Casey.
All right, so let me get back to the deck, because that leads us right into the next slide. So what makes AI different is that it's purposely positive. that we're looking for what works. It builds on the past successes. It's both grassroots and top down, because you're getting stuff emerging from the top, from the bottom, and that's I think what Undercover Boss was kind of realizing, that a lot of great ideas, you know, and also seeing the impact of some of their decisions. Oh, that was not so great. And it's highly participative, and it unleashes so much organizational energy around the projects that they identify. And it really gets them to start thinking more in a more positive way, better inner dialogue. It really gets them to be more creative, because there is that sense of play. And it really does help accelerate change, because they're part of it. They were part of the discussions, and are now wanting to move in the direction of the changes that they identified. They have the buy-in to it. So, and that takes us to the SOAR model, just to introduce that as well. So this is either a both and or an alternative to SWOT. So Jackie Stavros is a professor at Lawrence University and works with a partner, Gina Henrichs, and they wanted to take Appreciative Inquiry and kind of take it more in the overall strategy direction. And she wrote a seminal article called the Heart of SOAR that basically maps this as the alternative, but compares it to SWOT. Now, SWOT has been around since the late 50s, in the early days of strategic planning, and we wanted to give this the appreciative inquiry spin to it. So this one, and everybody familiar with SWOT analysis?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to be sure. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So with this, we start with that discovery process and identify all those greatest assets, our greatest strengths, our core competencies, what makes us sing as an organization. And then doing their traditional, looking outside, what are our very best opportunities out there in the marketplace? What do we see as our opportunities for growth? And then taking either each one of those opportunities or all of them collectively, defining that highest aspiration. What do we want to be and what is our preferred future? So this is really visioning and allowing it to go way beyond what they think could possibly happen, because we want to unleash their imagination. Now imagine they've spent all this time thinking about their best high point moments and best examples of things. So they're already in a higher elevated state. So this also gives them an opportunity to have a much potentially broader inspirational space to think about that aspiration. And then to bring that aspiration back to the ground is, how would we know we had indeed achieved that aspiration? How would we measure it? What would tell us we have indeed gone to that level? So what are the actual results? And then can you actually, if it's a increase in revenues, well, what does that percentage look like? And so let me just stop there. And thoughts or insights or experiences, I think. I'm sorry, is it Wida? Okay. What is your experience with SOAR?
Well, I do a context map first to really help an organization to look at all of the components that are impacting their current reality.
Okay.
And so a client that I'm working with right now, we're about to enter this component. So I'm excited that and hopeful that they're going to be able to step away from somebody was talking about negativity and that kind of mindset. And it was done, the last time I met with them was a month ago. So I'm going to kind of learn if that time gap between what we talked about then and moving to this segment will have any impact.
Yeah.
We'll see. But this particular organization has to decide on a focus area.
Yep.
This is in the Bronx and it's the Department of Health. And they have to determine what's going to be their focus of service. And so these questions are going to be very critical in helping them determine what directions they want to go in, because the Bronx has so many needs.
Yeah.
There's so many needs
Definitely.
that they could tackle. So.
Great. Anybody else use this before? So just some, when we had the 3-day strategic planning class, we were able to spend more time, playing with the model. And one time I had a guy who owned a $40 million consulting firm to the government, basically down in DC, engineering oriented. And what I generally do is I present the model and I ask for initial thoughts as a both and or alternative to SWOT. And this guy said, well, you got to talk about the threats and weaknesses. And I was like, yes, and let's see. And so I had them in for about 40 minutes. And the more they were working and they were focusing, he was actually focusing on another woman who was in a chain restaurant business. And you could just hear the level of the volume getting higher and higher because they were getting excited about what they were talking about, etc. And after they finished, and we were debriefing, that consultant said, I'm never doing SWOT again. Because what he realized, they still discussed the issues and the challenges and the threats and the weaknesses. And they actually, with that lady, it was an opportunity that they had ruled out. And now, as a result of the discussions they had, they realized that that was the appropriate solution. So the idea being is when we are doing SWOT analysis, and if it's not done well, people tend to get bogged down in the weaknesses or the threats, as well as they're doing it just as a check mark as part of the process. They're not really realizing anything out of it. They're not creating the focus. They're just filling in the boxes. So, and when they come out of it, the energy is kind of zapped because they're, it's like, ew, and so it's like they're trying to push the 10,000-pound rock up the mountain. That's kind of the image, metaphor image I give folks. When we do SOAR analysis, they've defined that aspiration. It goes back to that Joe Jaworski quote, we do not create the world we see the world we describe. And so with that aspiration, it's become something they want to move towards. And as a result, I say it's kind of like going whitewater rafting, where, especially if it's a challenging rapid, you scout it because you're going to get to the other side. It's just a matter of figuring out the best strategy to get there. And so ultimately, there's a 10,000-pound boulder, but it's in the water, and we're just going to find a path around it. So it gives a very different image. We're coming at the weaknesses from the other side. It's like, yeah, we know that, we acknowledge it. So, but how do we make up for it? So that is the SOAR model. And so I do have at the end of the presentation a whole bunch of resources. These are some of the general books. Oh, are we getting knocked out? Or is that just my mouse? That was my mouse. Okay. So happy to stay on with anyone. Happy to answer any questions and just let me know.
This was really great.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Enjoy. I hope you give it a shot. Now, do know that when we talked about it in our foundations class, there is the thing about doing AI versus being AI. And so I very much try to live in the being AI, looking for the best, trying to focus on what's working, and kind of take it from there.
Well, will we get a copy of, because I missed so much of it, I'd love to see a copy of
We're
it.
recording it, Stevie.
Of the PowerPoints too?
I'll send a
How do you
PDF.
feel about that? Yeah.
I'll
Okay,
share the
great.
PDF.
Thank you so much.
You're
Well, I'm going
welcome.
to stop the recording, but